Chapter 61, Testing. Bad news. She didn't recognize me, did she? At this moment, Su Jingzhen naturally saw Feng Qingye walking towards him. His expression suddenly became tense, but his face remained calm, with an expression of surprise similar to the people around him. When he looked at Feng Qingye, his eyes sparkled with a hint of admiration, as if he were appreciating a beautiful thing in the world. Just like ordinary people, he was simply admiring the beauty of the world. They had never revealed their true faces when they went to the treasure-gathering pavilion, and when they talked to Feng Qingye, they had intentionally changed their tone of voice. Su Jingzhen was confident that the other party wouldn't discover his true identity. At most, they might have some suspicions. While everyone was surprised, Lu Yuebai's heart skipped a beat in the central area. What is she trying to do? Could it be that she thinks Taoist Su is extraordinary and wants to pull him in? But she's the pavilion master of the Linjiang City branch, and Taoist Su's performance today is indeed exceptional, but that's all. It shouldn't be within her scope, right? Lu Yuebai's heart was slightly tense at this moment. He had only made a preliminary guess that the pill fragrance he smelled that day was related to Su Jingzhen. But he hadn't had time to verify it yet. If Feng Qingye were to get ahead of him, wouldn't that be a pity? He was very clear that with Feng Qingye's charm and beauty, few low-level cultivators could resist. If Su Jingzhen was indeed a mysterious alchemist, then Feng Qingye's advantage would be far greater than his own. Taoist Su, there's an empty seat at your table. May I sit down? Feng Qingye asked with a smile, her voice as smooth as honey. As she spoke, she also nodded slightly towards Shuangjiang and Enning Yao on the side, showing her goodwill. She didn't have the air of a treasure-gathering pavilion master. However, the white-haired old man behind her followed her wherever she went. It made Enning Yao's eyes flutter with anxiety, her small hands tightly grasping Shuangjiang's sleeve. Shuangjiang was also worried at this time, remembering that his current image was that of an ordinary person with a broken dantian and no cultivation. His eyes also showed some tension. After nodding slightly to Feng Qingye, she leaned towards Su Jingzhen. For this kind of on-the-spot reaction, she was very skillful and there was no flaw at all. Manager Feng, please sit. At this time, Su Jingzhen directly stood up, his face showing tension mixed with some excitement. It was completely different from his previous debate with Chen Jinshi and Chen Chong. However, in other people's eyes, this was the most normal reaction. But seeing him like this, Feng Qingye's eyebrows slightly raised. She thought to herself, that guy seemed to be not interested in women and was indeed different from Su Jingzhen. After sitting down, Feng Qingye still smiled at Su Jingzhen and said, Taoist Su's previous remarks were very sharp, making me admire you even more. Let me toast you, Taoist Su. Su Jingzhen's heart skipped a beat, and he forced a laugh. If it weren't for being forced into a desperate situation, who would dare to provoke the Chen family? But it's okay, Su, we'll just live a simple life in Linjiang City. With the existence of Huyang sect, I don't have to worry about my life's safety. At this time, Su Jingzhen's words were naturally meant to follow his previous statement of absolutely believing in Huyang sect. It was a small person's mentality. After speaking, he also happily raised his cup and toasted with Feng Qingye. It was as if this was a great honor. And it was still without any flaws, making Feng Qingye's heart feel disappointed again. Indeed, the difference was too great. In her eyes, the Su Jingzhen in front of her did have some courage. However, the control he seemed to have previously was probably also due to this incident. More likely, it was the fragile order of Huyang sect that gave him courage. However, Feng Qingye was still a qualified merchant. She still had doubts in her heart and tried to probe further. If Taoist Su can refine pills, that would be great. If Taoist Su can refine pills, perhaps my treasure-gathering pavilion can also provide some protection. As she spoke, Feng Qingye's gaze was fixed on Su Jingzhen's face, as if trying to find a flaw. Unfortunately, Su Jingzhen only paused for a moment when he heard this. Then he smiled and said, if I were a pill refiner, I would have become a member to Huyang sect long ago, and the Chen family wouldn't dare to bully me like this. It was still this kind of small person's thinking. Feng Qingya's face still had that professional fake smile. However, Feng Qingya's heart was thoroughly disappointed. She chatted with him for a few more sentences, but then lost interest. Actually, when Chen Chong and others targeted Su Jingzhen earlier, Feng Qingya didn't care at all. The strong prey on the weak, and this kind of thing was too normal. But later, Su Jingzhen's calmness in the face of Chen Chong and Chen Jinshi, his sharp words, and his ease in controlling the situation made her feel. It was as if she had seen someone else. Moreover, Su Jingzhen's name had a character, Shi, in it. The alchemist token she gave out also only had the character, Shi. Sometimes, some unintentional coincidences can become the truth. She came with expectations, but ultimately left in disappointment, because that person's greatest characteristic, Feng Qingya didn't see in Su Jingzhen. Earlier, at the Treasure Gathering Pavilion's second floor, she didn't even mind physically touching Su Jingzhen. And at that time, Feng Qingya was also fully open with her charm. But that guy was still unmoved. In contrast, this Su Jingzhen, she believed that if she just used a little trick, he would probably be completely enthralled. Feng Qingya chatted with Su Jingzhen for a few more sentences, then stood up and left directly. Seeing this, many of the guests also stood up. They bid farewell to Chen Chong. Today's atmosphere had already been made somewhat awkward by the previous incident. They knew that Chen Chong probably didn't have the heart to continue hosting the rest of the program. After all, Chen Jinshi, the main character, had already left in a huff. Now that someone had taken the lead, it would be impolite to continue staying here. Thank you for the hospitality, farewell. We're also leaving, farewell. Zag. The farewell voices rose and fell. Chen Chong forced a smile to respond. At this time, Su Jingzhen nodded to Shuangjiang and stood up, bringing Enning Yao with him. They walked to Chen Chong's front. Thank you for the hospitality, farewell. Although we didn't agree on the matter of the academy today, it doesn't affect my consideration of you as a friend, Taoist Chen Chong. Tomorrow is the awakening ceremony held by Huyang sect, and I, Su, am very much looking forward to seeing the elegance of your academy's children. Even though my Peach Blossom Alley Academy didn't merge with Kuiliu Alley, we still need to strengthen our cooperation and exchange in the future. After speaking, he also seriously bowed to Chen Chong, farewell. Killing with a borrowed knife, that's all. Originally, Chen Chong could still maintain a smiling face, but after hearing Su Jingzhen's words, his face turned completely dark. A small person getting what they want. Really, a small person getting what they want. Not long after, the guests dispersed, leaving only the Kuiliu school's mess. The school's teachers were bitterly cleaning up the mess. At this time, Chen Chong arrived at a pavilion. Chen Jinshi was sitting on a meditation cushion in the pavilion. He seemed to be cultivating, but his heart was extremely unstable. He couldn't calm down. Feeling Chen Chong's arrival, he directly opened his eyes. Uncle, this person, he must die. Chen Jinshi didn't blame Chen Chong. He knew that today's events couldn't be entirely blamed on Chen Chong, and that he himself was also at fault. But all his hatred, all the loss of face, was attributed to Su Jingzhen. Chen Chong didn't expect his nephew's first words to be like this. He let out a sigh, knowing that Chen Jinshi's heart was already affected. If Su Jingzhen didn't die, Chen Jinshi's chances of reaching foundation establishment might be affected. Thinking of this, Chen Chong's killing intent also intensified. Chen Jinshi had always been the greatest hope of the Chen family. As long as it involved Chen Jinshi, Chen Chong would unconditionally take a step back. Now that Chen Jinshi's killing intent was so strong, Su Jingzhen really had to die. His face was extremely gloomy. After a moment of contemplation, he said, "Today's events will soon spread throughout Linjiang City. Our Chen family is already destined to become the laughingstock of the city, and with Zhang Hong and Li Long, those two executives, present, if we kill Su Jingzhen tonight, the impact will be even more severe. It doesn't seem like a good thing for our Chen family." Although his killing intent was strong, he still had reservations. Uncle, Linjiang City is a complex place, even more so than you imagine. There have been cases of demonic cultivators killing people in the streets, and many deaths have occurred. Hujiang's sect is already unable to control the situation. As long as we keep our hands clean, even if everyone suspects us, what can they do to us? Originally, after returning from the middle courtyard, Chen Jinshi had planned to ignore Su Jingzhen and wait for an opportunity to kill him later. But the more he thought about it, the angrier he became. The more he retreated, the more he wanted to kill. The killing intent in his heart was difficult to suppress. He said again, "Tomorrow is the day I'll be promoted to an inner sect disciple, and it's also the day the school children will awaken their spirits. To avoid any hidden dangers, I don't want to see this person again tomorrow. I know Uncle is capable of handling this matter." Upon hearing this, Chen Chong's eyebrows furrowed again. But he still nodded. All right. In Chen Chong's eyes, Chen Jinshi's cultivation and future were above everything. He would do his best to eliminate anyone or anything that affected Chen Jinshi. And in his view, as long as Chen Chong could become an inner sect disciple, foundation establishment was just around the corner. And at that time, even if people knew that Su Jingzhen was killed by the Chen family, what would it matter? Girl, is the meal delicious. On the way back, Su Jingzhen smiled at Enning Yao. The latter nodded like a chick pecking at rice. They had almost finished the wine and dishes on the table, with Su Jingzhen and Enning Yao eating most of it. Although sister-in-law Zhang Ziyu often handled affairs for Hujiang sect, and had accumulated more spirit stones than other residents of Peach Blossom Alley, she didn't usually splurge. Even though Enning Yao didn't have to worry about food and clothing, this kind of banquet was still something she hadn't experienced before. During their conversation, Su Jingzhen didn't intentionally bring up the topic of tomorrow's spirit awakening. As someone who had experienced high-pressure exams in his past life, he knew that excessive emphasis and encouragement from others during such times would only add more psychological pressure to the child. These things would naturally take their course. Just then, before they reached the main street, Luo Yuebai, who had been walking with them, suddenly caught up. "Taoist Su, you're wrong about this. We agreed to travel together, which means we should go together, no matter what." Seeing Luo Yuebai, Su Jingzhen's face revealed a bitter smile. Shuangjiang had told him to avoid this guy, but now it seemed like he was stuck to him like a piece of dog skin plaster. At this time, Su Jingzhen smiled and said, "I thought you wanted to go to the treasure-gathering pavilion. Some things need to be done while the iron is hot. If we wait too long, even Feng Qingye might not recognize you." Su Jingzhen's words had a hint of teasing. In fact, he hadn't expected that Luo Yuebai's intention was to get to know Feng Qingye from the treasure-gathering pavilion. And judging from his previous behavior, it seemed like he had already known that Feng Qingye would be there. He had already set his target. If it weren't for Shuangjiang's warning that this guy wasn't simple, Su Jingzhen's surprise would have been even greater. Upon hearing Su Jingzhen's words, Luo Yuebai's face revealed a hint of embarrassment. He also smiled and nodded. "Taoist Su's words are indeed correct. However, when I was at Qulu School, I was able to chat with the pavilion master, but it was only because the pavilion master was reluctant to make a scene in public and didn't want to offend me. Using the thick-skinned technique once is enough. If I were to recklessly go to the treasure-gathering pavilion, I'd probably be kicked out directly." Before he finished speaking, he teased, "It seems that Taoist Su's previous demeanor was more likely to win the pavilion master's favor. Didn't the pavilion master not invite Taoist Su to sit with her at the treasure-gathering pavilion?" As he said this, Luo Yuebai's eyes had a hint of curiosity. Su Jingzhen's heart, however, was suddenly startled. He immediately realized that Luo Yuebai's words were a test for him. What abilities did he possess? He only knew how to refine pills. Had this guy discovered something? His face immediately revealed a hint of doubt. I, Su, am only good at teaching and have no other talents. I don't even compare to Taoist Luo in terms of appearance. I really don't know what could make the pavilion master favor me." As he said this, Su Jingzhen's face only revealed a bitter smile. with no other emotions. There were no cracks in his facade. Luo Yuebai's eyes had a hint of surprise. But he soon nodded and didn't continue to press the issue. He smiled and said, "Today, Taoist Su has thoroughly offended the Chen family. In the future, it might not be easy for you in Linjiang City. There might even be hidden dangers lurking in the shadows. I wonder how Taoist Su will respond to this." This was again Luo Yuebai's test for Su Jingzhen. The latter smiled bitterly and shook his head. "This is an unavoidable situation. Let's take it one step at a time." This response had a hint of helplessness. Luo Yuebai's handsome face also revealed a slight surprise. He soon smiled and nodded, not continuing to probe further. But in his heart, he was still convinced that Su Jingzhen was not simple. If he really had no abilities, he wouldn't be so calm. As they chatted, the four of them quickly returned to Peach Blossom Alley. As they parted ways, Luo Yuebai seriously warned Su Jingzhen, "No matter what, please be careful these days. Hujiang sect can't cover everything. Especially on the day of the spirit awakening tomorrow, it might not be too peaceful." After speaking, he headed towards his own residence. Su Jingzhen was taken aback, then smiled again. This Taoist Luo is really interesting. Luo Yuebai's figure disappeared into his residence. Su Jingzhen's eyebrows furrowed again. This guy is getting more and more mysterious. I feel like he knows something. Su Jingzhen was talking to Xianxia beside him. Xianxia, however, smiled faintly and said, "Everyone has their own path, and we should focus on our own cultivation. As you said earlier, let's take things as they come. The rest will fall into place as long as you work hard to improve your strength." Xianxia rarely spoke in such a tone. Su Jingzhen nodded in agreement. The three of them then returned to the academy. After returning to the quiet room, Xianxia looked at Su Jingzhen again. "What's your plan now? Will you continue or wait until tomorrow?" As she spoke, her gaze drifted towards the alchemy furnace in the corner. Xianxia knew that if it weren't for the banquet, Su Jingzhen might have already consumed the remaining 20 green spirit pills in his hand. He might have even refined a batch of chiro-replenishing pills. Su Jingzhen, however, smiled. "Moderation is key to progress, as you taught me. Today I ate a lot of spirit-infused food at the banquet, so I might as well practice the Python scale's power to absorb it all. The other matters can wait for now." Currently, Su Jingzhen was extremely satisfied with his cultivation progress. He had acquired a satisfactory magical tool, mastered the Python scale's power technique, and reached the 5th layer of flesh-body mysterious embryo. He could also reopen the surging spring secret chamber at any time. Among the lower-level cultivators in Linjiang City, Su Jingzhen's foundation was already quite impressive. At the very least, he was no longer the Su Jingzhen who was easily bullied. Most importantly, as long as Xianxia remained by his side, he had the confidence to face all challenges. The banquet had also revealed the Chen family's attitude towards the academy, which seemed to be one of determination. Although he had lost face in the Kuiliu Alley incident, Su Jingzhen knew that the Chen family's killing intent towards him might have intensified. He thought to himself, "I might be in danger tonight." Turning to Enning Yao, he said, "Girl, you can rest here with Xianxia tonight." "Okay." Enning Yao didn't ask any questions. She simply followed Su Jingzhen's arrangements. Seeing her obedient expression, Su Jingzhen couldn't help but ruffle her hair again. Then he walked out of the quiet room. Emotional connection +8. Remaining usable points 293. The sudden increase in points made Su Jingzhen's footsteps falter. He smiled faintly and continued on his way to the courtyard, where the peach blossoms were in full bloom. He discarded all distractions and began to practice the Python scale's power technique. The spiritual energy and blood essence from the spirit-infused wine and meat he consumed at the banquet began to merge with his body under the effect of the technique. He felt his blood energy increasing, although not enough to break through to the 6th layer of mysterious embryo. However, with daily accumulation, he could still improve without relying on the points granted by the golden finger. Ever since he had enough points, Su Jingzhen had wanted to excavate the surging spring secret chamber several times, but he had restrained himself. At least as long as Jiang was by his side, he couldn't do it, not only because it was unnecessary, but also because he didn't want to arouse Jiang's suspicion. The golden finger was his greatest secret, and he couldn't risk exposing it to anyone. This time, Su Jingzhen stopped practicing the Python scales power technique before reaching exhaustion. After all, tonight might not be peaceful. Although Jiang was by his side, he still needed to be cautious. It was already late at night. Seeing that the lamp in the quiet room had gone out, he knew Enning Yao must have fallen asleep. He headed towards the kitchen. Meanwhile, in the neighboring courtyard, Lu Yuebai sat in the central courtyard, fanning himself with a folding fan. He had his senses open, sniffing the air for any unusual scents. He had been in this state for a while, but his eyebrows began to furrow. Is he going to sleep tonight? If it's really you, wouldn't you refine some pills to celebrate your achievements in Kuiliu Alley tonight? Lu Yuebai's gaze was fixed on Su Jingzhen's courtyard, muttering to himself in a low voice, his eyes filled with curiosity. In fact, when he came back, he had already made a decision. As long as the fragrance of the pill he smelled last night came from Su Jing's yard again, he would go over to check it out today. However, it ultimately ended in disappointment. As he was thinking this, several figures quietly slipped into his courtyard. He didn't even bother to acknowledge them. But this time, the several figures didn't choose to return to the house, instead kneeling halfway behind him. Lord Moon, our people have gathered at the designated location, and some have already assembled. One of the black-clad men respectfully reported to Lu Yuebai. Wait for now, since they've already gathered, we'll just have to adapt to the situation. Wait for my instructions when the time comes. Lu Yuebai waved his folding fan and responded calmly. Yes. The several black-clad men responded in unison. Just as they were about to return to the house, Lu Yuebai seemed to remember something, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. Wait a minute. The several black-clad men immediately stopped in their tracks. Lu Yuebai's gaze turned towards Su Jingzhen's courtyard, next door. There's an interesting person living here, and they might be in danger tonight. You're all free, so why don't you keep an eye on them? Lu Yuebai didn't dare to handle Su Jingzhen's situation with simple brutality, unsure of their true identity and background. On the other hand, he was also afraid that Su Jingzhen might just be an ordinary person. If such an interesting neighbor were to be killed by the Chen family, it would be a real pity. So, within his capabilities, he was willing to lend a hand. Upon hearing Lu Yuebai's words, the black-clad men, with only their eyes visible, exchanged a puzzled glance. But they didn't ask any questions, simply responding with a yes before melting into the darkness. They quietly dispersed to various locations around Su Jingzhen's Enlightenment School. In the quiet, lampless room, Jiang's eyes suddenly snapped open. She glanced at Enning Yao, who was already fast asleep on the stone bed behind her. Her gaze then turned towards the window outside. Her eyes seemed slightly fierce, but after a moment, a hint of a smile appeared on her lips. I didn't want to bother with this guy, but as he said, this guy really is like a sticky plaster, actively sticking to me. However, this way I might be able to avoid some trouble. Su Jingzhen was resting in the kitchen, but his vigilance was even higher than when he was on high alert like a cat on the roof. He was in a state of half-sleep, constantly on the lookout for any signs of danger. He was afraid that the Chen family would send assassins to take risks. After all, they would be going to the Hujiang sect for the awakening ceremony tomorrow. This was the Chen family's last chance. If he died tonight, many things would be resolved. Su Jingzhen often put himself in his enemy's shoes to think about things from their perspective. He thought that if he were Chen Chong, he would definitely arrange for someone to come and try their luck tonight. After all, in Chen Chong's eyes, Su Jingzhen was just a chirofining beginner with no background and a sick brain. Moreover, he was not only vigilant about the Chen family. Yesterday, he had a high-profile confrontation with Chen Chong's uncle and nephew at Kuiliu School. This news would soon spread throughout Linjiang City. As long as they could get rid of him, the blame would surely fall on the Chen family. Whoever it was, they would have enemies, and Chen Chong was no exception. So in Su Jingzhen's view, the people who might come tonight could also be the Chen family's enemies. However, what surprised him was that the sky was about to brighten, and the school was still quiet, without any signs of movement. From where he was sleeping, he could see the door of the quiet room. He knew that Shuangjiang had not left the quiet room, and no one had entered. So was no one coming. Su Jingzhen felt a slight sense of disappointment. He was really looking forward to a challenge. And he wanted to replicate the achievement of killing Lin Ping again. His new ultimate brick had not been baptized in blood yet. This guy, as long as he had a bit of power, had some restless factors stirring in his bones. But he didn't know that someone had indeed come tonight, and not just one wave. It's just that his good neighbor, the dog skin plaster, had quietly built a solid defense line for him. All the assassins who came, whether professional or not, had been turned into pus. They had seeped into the soil around the school. Even after special treatment, there was no trace left behind that could be detected. In a loft of Kuiliu School, Chen Chong had not slept all night. At dawn, Chen Jinshi woke up again from his forced entry into a meditative state. He opened his eyes to see Chen Chong packing back and forth in front of him, looking anxious. "Uncle, how's the situation?" He thought that a night had passed, and with their Chen family's abilities, and Chen Chong's abilities, killing a chirofining beginner should be extremely simple. But Chen Chong's anxious expression made him feel a sense of unease. His eyebrows furrowed involuntarily. As Chen Jinshi finished his meditation, Chen Chong's face revealed a bitter and worried expression. He directly took out 5 broken fate tokens. "Jinshi, it seems we've underestimated that guy. He really has a strong background and hidden cards. Last night, I spent some resources to have a few desperate men from the outer city district sneak into Peach Blossom Alley. Before they acted, they handed over their fate tokens to me, but they all fell within an hour." Looking at the 5 broken fate tokens in his hand, Chen Chong still couldn't believe it, as if he was in a dream. "You know, the 5 people I hired were all at the late stage of chirofining, at least at the 7th or 8th layer. This Su Jingzhen, I'm afraid he is not as without background as we imagined." Chen Jinshi's gaze was also fixed on the 5 broken fate tokens in Chen Chong's hand. After a long silence, he asked with a gloomy face, "Uncle, did those 5 assassins have direct contact with you?" Chen Chong shook his head. "Uncle may not be skilled, but I'm not foolish enough to make such a low-level mistake." Chen Jinshi nodded, his face dark and complex. "Then this matter is settled. We, the Chen family, know nothing and have done nothing. Let's talk about this again after you, nephew, become an inner disciple of Huiyang sect today. Now let's prepare to go to Huiyang sect." "Okay. Could it be that a chirofining beginner, a mere school teacher, could make 5 late-stage chirofining assassins disappear without a trace? Even if his actual strength was as it seemed, he probably had a powerful backer hiding in the shadows. Most cultivators were vigilant, and the Chen uncle and nephew were not foolish enough to act impulsively. Knowing when to retreat and wait for the next opportunity was the right path. 494 days until the host's danshan is shattered. Daily fixed points, Zhangzhou, 4 Shuangjiang, 8 Fengqingya, 2. Remaining usable points, 307. As the first ray of sunlight from the eastern horizon fell, Su Jingzhen's eyes flashed with a few lines of golden text again. It's just that there's an additional Fengqingya now. Now every day at dawn, he can increase his points by 14, which makes him extremely excited. His surging spring secret chamber has not been unlocked yet, and the additional points have already broken through the 100 mark. In fact, he can add the extra 107 points to other attribute spiritual roots at this time. Thinking about this, his heart is stirred. The panel appears in front of him again. Host Su Jingzhen. Number of spiritual companions, 3. Remaining usable points, 307. Metal spiritual roots, ordinary, 23/100. Wood spiritual roots, mysterious, 0/200. Water spiritual roots, ordinary, 25/100. Fire spiritual roots, ordinary, 89/100. Earth spiritual roots, ordinary, 32/100. He looked at it but still restrained himself. Although the points are coming more easily now, it's still a drop in the bucket. Never mind, every point should be used on the most urgent needs. The mysterious wood's spiritual roots are already sufficient, and directly increasing my physical strength is my current top priority. Alchemical refining and physical cultivation are his two major tasks at the moment. He'll consider upgrading his metal and fire spiritual roots later, when the points are not so tight. That way, his brick's attack power will become stronger, and that's enough. Thinking this way, Su Jingzhen's mood becomes more calm and peaceful. He started a fire and began cooking again. Shuangjiang has already been trained to have a good habit of eating breakfast. And Enning Yao, the little girl, needs it too. He doesn't need to call the two girls to get up, and when the aroma of the food spreads out, the two figures appear at the kitchen door. Come on, let's eat. Next, after finishing breakfast, the sky had already brightened up. Su Jingzhen had originally wanted to practice the Python scale's power under the peach blossom tree. But before he could even start, a knocking sound came from outside the door. Mr. Su, we're here. Mr. Su, are you there? A burst of children's laughter accompanied by playful voices also came from outside. Su Jingzhen had promised the kids during their lesson that he would take them to the Huiyang sect today. Today, the kids had arrived as promised. Su Jingzhen opened the door to find over 10 people standing outside. Not only were there the kids who were about to awaken their spiritual roots, but also their parents. However, after counting, Su Jingzhen realized that a few of them were missing. Only 8 kids were willing to follow him. Adding Enning Yao, his enlightenment school was left with only 9 students. The number was truly pitiful. It seemed that the results were all due to the aftermath of last night's banquet. The parents of these 8 kids were only at the initial stage of refining their kai, just like Su Jingzhen, truly at the bottom rung. Perhaps Chen Chong had looked down on them and left them behind. After all, these 8 kids didn't have impressive innate talents, and even Su Jingzhen didn't think highly of them. But it didn't matter, quality was more important than quantity. He still had Enning Yao, his trump card. Please come in, everyone, we'll head to the Huiyang sect together later. Su Jingzhen greeted the kids' parents. Everyone returned the greeting and followed him into the school. At the same time, many cultivators from Linjiang City streets were hurrying towards the Huiyang sect. The annual awakening ceremony was a grand event in Linjiang City. Even those who didn't attend school, like Xianxia, who had failed to awaken their spiritual roots multiple times, could participate as long as they were willing to pay a certain amount of spirit stones. In the past, there were those who had awakened their spiritual roots after multiple attempts, proving that it's never too late to succeed in the cultivation world. Therefore, every year, many children who had failed to awaken their spiritual roots in the past would participate in the ceremony, hoping to succeed. On this day, the Huiyang sect would be fully open to the public. However, to enter, one still had to pay a certain amount of spirit stones. It was like buying a ticket. In Linjiang City, no matter what you wanted to do, you couldn't do without spirit stones. The main street, which connected Peach Blossom Alley and Kuiliu Alley, stretched from north to south. Following the main street north, you would eventually reach the gate of the Huiyang sect. The Linjiang City branch of the Huiyang sect was located in the northern part of the city. It was situated at the foot of Clear Wind Mountain, occupying a vast area, with some special cultivation grounds even built on the outskirts of the mountain. Today, many people walked along the main street, all with the same goal in mind, the Huiyang sect. When Su Jingzhen and his group arrived from the school, the entrance to the Huiyang sect was already slightly crowded. At this time, Su Jingzhen noticed that, unlike previous years, a considerable number of people wearing black robes and headscarves were heading towards the Huiyang sect. However, the Huiyang sect didn't care about their attire. You could pretend to be mysterious if you wanted, as long as you paid the spirit stones according to the rules. This was a display of the Huiyang sect's confidence. It wasn't afraid of anyone causing trouble. At the end of the main street was a 99-step blue stone staircase. The gate of the Huiyang sect was located at the top of the staircase. 4 white jade pillars, each 9 zhang tall, stood on either side. No matter who you were, you had to line up and pay the spirit stones to enter. Su Jingzhen looked up at the 3 large characters, Huiyang sect on the gate, and a faint smile appeared on his face. This was his 3rd time coming here. The previous 2 times, he had also brought students, and the Enlightenment School's kids had achieved decent results, so he had been quite proud on those occasions. But this time, Su Jingzhen's mindset was vastly different. He no longer cared about the school, and he didn't have the same tension as before. Moreover, with Shuangjiang by his side, he didn't need to worry about safety issues. 1 person, 10 lower-grade spirit stones, a Huiyang sect disciple said expressionlessly as Su Jingzhen reached the gate. Su Jingzhen's expression froze again. This was outrageous, the price had really skyrocketed. In the past 2 years, the entrance fee was only 5 lower-grade spirit stones per person. This year, the price had doubled, which was absurd. Even the parents of the 8 kids behind him looked worried. These 8 kids' parents were truly at the bottom rung. They had prepared spirit stones according to the previous standard of 5 lower-grade spirit stones per person. The sudden price hike had indeed left them stunned. "Mr. Su, we might not be able to get in. Please help us, Mr. Su. No matter the result, you're our benefactor." These kids, in Su Jingzhen's eyes, didn't have impressive talents, and the chances of them awakening their spiritual roots were low. But they were their parents' hopes for this year. No matter what, they would let the kids go in. Su Jingzhen smiled and nodded. "They're my students, so there's no problem." Although Su Jingzhen didn't lack spirit stones at the moment, he didn't have a reason to help these people out with the 10 lower-grade spirit stones. Apart from teaching them in school, he didn't have any other interactions with them. Su Jingzhen had no doubts that if Chen Chong had also contacted them, these 8 students wouldn't be following him today. "Thank you, Mr. Su." After helping the kids pay the 10 lower-grade spirit stones, their parents could only stand silently at the gate of the Huiyang sect. They watched as the kids entered, feeling helpless. Meanwhile, in the courtyard next to the school, Lu Yuebai was still dressed in his white moon-colored robes, his hair standing upright, holding a folding fan, looking as handsome as ever. "The timing is almost right. With the Huiyang sect's grand event, I must participate." Fanning himself, Lu Yuebai walked out of the gate, heading towards the Enlightenment School. He still wanted to follow Su Jingzhen. However, when he arrived at the school gate, he found it tightly closed, locked from the outside. Taoist Su's actions are quite swift. Lu Yuebai sighed and didn't bother to care. He directly headed towards the main street. After he left, a black-clad figure would occasionally emerge from his courtyard, blend into the dark corners, and disappear. Su Jingzhen and Shuangjiang, accompanied by 9 children, entered the Huiyang sect's main gate and headed straight for the central area. As they walked, they could feel a sense of excitement and joy within the sect's domain. The spiritual energy here was incredibly dense, far surpassing that of the streets outside. In fact, the difference between this place and Peach Blossom Alley was likely tenfold. Su Jingzhen even saw people meditating along the roadside, on stone benches, and on the ground, fully immersed in their cultivation. For many ordinary cultivators stuck in a bottleneck, paying 10 low-grade spirit stones would allow them to cultivate here for a whole day. It was said that this could directly help them break through their current realm. This was an absolute steal. Su Jingzhen walked while silently observing their surroundings. There were more people entering the Huiyang sect this time compared to last time. Many of them were outsiders, and the black-clad figures scattered around made the atmosphere in the sect slightly tense. As they walked, they soon arrived at the central area of the Huiyang sect. There was a massive square, paved with green stone, and in the center stood a 3-zhang-tall statue. The statue depicted a middle-aged man with a sword brow, carrying a long sword on his back, exuding an aura of grandeur. This was the founder of the Huiyang sect, Huiyang Zhenren. Legend had it that over 1,000 years ago, Su Jingzhen had created the heavenly radiant sun-reflecting sword and made a name for himself throughout the Qingzhou region. Every branch of the Luoyang sect had a statue of him as a symbol of reverence. Next to the statue stood a slightly shorter white ancient tower, which looked somewhat aged. This was the ultimate destination of Su Jingzhen's group, the Spirit Awakening Tower. The tower was embedded with spirit stones that could detect a child's innate talent as soon as they entered. At this moment, many people had gathered in the square. In the square, there were only seats around the Spirit Awakening Tower, and only about 100 of them. Although Su Jingzhen and his group were from a school and could be considered an organization, they didn't have the qualifications to sit down. They could only choose a spot near the tower to stand. As time passed, more and more people gathered in the square. The empty spaces around them were gradually filled with people, and soon the entire square was packed with thousands of people. Although Su Jingzhen had made a name for himself in Kuiliu Alley the day before today, no one paid any attention to him. Just then, a familiar voice suddenly came from behind him. "Taoist Su, you're really hard to find. You didn't even say hello when you arrived." Su Jingzhen turned around to see Luo Yuebai. "Taoist Luo, you're here too." Su Jingzhen smiled slightly, but was a bit surprised in his heart. He knew that Luo Yuebai might have discovered something, and this was going to be a troublesome encounter. At the same time, he became more curious about Luo Yuebai's identity. When Luo Yuebai arrived, Shuangjiang glanced at him lightly, but didn't show any reaction. About half an hour later, when the sun was shining brightly on the square, the high-ranking officials of the Luoyang sect gradually emerged from the palace and took their seats in the central area of the square. There were men and women, old and young, all with extraordinary auras and dignified demeanors. Chen Jinshi, whom they had met the night before, was among them. Even Chen Chong, thanks to his relationship with Chen Jinshi, had a seat there. Next to Chen Chong's seat, over 100 children were standing. Some of them had studied at Su Jingzhen's Enlightenment School. Although they were standing, their positions were still much better than Su Jingzhen's group. Although there are more people attending the Spirit Awakening ceremony this time, it seems that many high-ranking officials of the Luoyang sect are not present. It just so happens that the Clear Wind Mountain has discovered a treasure, and the sect master of the Luoyang sect's Jiangling branch, as well as many other cultivators, have all gone to Clear Wind Mountain. The Spirit Awakening ceremony is important, but compared to the wonders of Clear Wind Mountain, it seems a bit lacking. Clear Wind Mountain is not just a matter for the Luoyang sect's Jiangling branch. I heard that the main sect of Luoyang sect has also sent many strong cultivators. Several other sects that are not weaker than the Luoyang sect's main sect have also sent strong cultivators. That's where the real action is, and it's the most dangerous and lively place right now. Compared to that, the people attending the Spirit Awakening ceremony here are much weaker. As the Luoyang sect's cultivators appeared, the square was filled with discussions. Su Jingzhen had some understanding of this. After all, he had participated in 2 Spirit Awakening ceremonies before. The high-ranking officials of the Luoyang sect he had seen before were not the same as these people. At least the sect master of the Luoyang sect's Jiangling branch, whom he knew, was not present. Su Jingzhen's eyebrows furrowed, and his gaze turned towards the Clear Wind Mountain in the distance. His eyes could only see the outer perimeter of the mountain, and it seemed peaceful. He couldn't imagine how intense the battles there would be, or what kind of treasure had appeared. His heart was filled with unknown worries, especially for sister-in-law Zhang Ziyu. Taoist Su seems to be very interested in Clear Wind Mountain. Luo Yuebai smiled, noticing Su Jingzhen's gaze. Su Jingzhen's heart skipped a beat, and he looked at Luo Yuebai again. He couldn't help but ask, "Does Taoist Luo know something about Clear Wind Mountain?" In Su Jingzhen's eyes, Luo Yuebai was becoming more and more mysterious. Maybe he could get some unexpected information from him. Luo Yuebai nodded. "I do know some things. Maybe in the next day or two, Clear Wind Mountain will have a complete outcome, maybe even today." He paused, then said, "So today's Spirit Awakening ceremony might be more exciting than usual, but this is just a rumor. I don't know if it's true. I just spent some spirit stones to come and see the excitement." As he finished speaking, Luo Yuebai's face was filled with a smile, and he fanned himself with a folding fan. His elegant and handsome appearance attracted the attention of many female cultivators nearby. Su Jingzhen's heart skipped a beat again. This guy was mysterious and unpredictable, and his words seemed casual, but their credibility was likely very high. Su Jingzhen even felt that Luo Yuebai's words were a warning to him. His heart was filled with caution, and his worries about sister-in-law Xianxia grew stronger. When he looked at Shuangjiang beside him, the latter only raised an eyebrow with a disdainful smile. Su Jingzhen was about to say something, but suddenly, a commotion broke out in the square. Su Jingzhen and the others couldn't help but turn their gazes towards the commotion. The crowd automatically parted to create a path. A tall, slender figure emerged, walking towards the center. The person who came was elegant and charming. Who else could it be but Feng Qingye? Today, Feng Qingye wore a black long dress. Her noble demeanor seemed even more refined. The dress wasn't too loose, and Feng Qingye's perfect figure was accentuated. Her face wore a professional, fake smile. The old man with white hair who had appeared last night still followed closely behind her, like a loyal guardian. Is that the new pavilion master of treasure gathering pavilion? She's indeed as beautiful as the rumors say. I heard she made an appearance at Kuliu Ali's Kuliu school last night, but unfortunately I was still on Clear Wind Mountain, trying my luck, and didn't get to see her. Today, I finally get to see her, and she's even more beautiful than I imagined. To be honest, I've never been too concerned about a female cultivator's appearance. After all, beauty is just a facade. But seeing Feng Qingye has changed my previous way of thinking. If Feng Qingye were to take a liking to me, I'd be willing to give her my specially cultivated ribs to make a nourishing soup. As expected, Feng Qingye was the center of attention wherever she went. At this moment, she frequently smiled and nodded towards the crowd, making people dizzy with admiration. Many low-level cultivators in the early stages of their training couldn't help but have unrealistic fantasies. When Feng Qingye arrived, the highest-ranking elder of Huyang sect, an old man with white hair, suddenly stood up. He respectfully bowed and greeted her. "Greetings, Pavilion Master Feng. I apologize for not welcoming you properly." These polite phrases were unavoidable. Feng Qingye smiled and said, "Vice Sect Master Cao, you're too kind. Since Huyang Sect is hosting such a grand event, it's only natural for Treasure Gathering Pavilion to attend and show our support." The white-haired elder who greeted Feng Qingye was named Cao Qing. He was the Vice Sect Master of Huyang Sect's branch in Linjiang. He was also the highest-ranking member of Huyang Sect present at the gathering. With the Sect Master absent, Cao Qing was in charge of hosting the event. Feng Qingye's seat was next to Cao Qing's, in the absolute center. After Feng Qingye and the old man following her took their seats, Cao Qing stood up. He wore a dark green bracelet on his wrist, which suddenly flashed with light. An ancient, rustic longsword appeared in his hand. He then made a hand seal, and the sword began to float in midair. He took a step forward, standing steadily on the sword. The next second, he flew into the air. Sword flight. Cao Qing's sudden display of sword flight shocked most of the people present. Sword flight was the most obvious sign of a foundation establishment cultivator. Although everyone knew that Cao Qing was a foundation establishment cultivator, every time they saw sword flight, countless chirofining stage cultivators couldn't help but feel envious. For many low-level cultivators, being able to fly with a sword one day was the ultimate dream. Looking at Cao Qing, who was standing steadily in midair, Su Jingzhen couldn't help but feel a little envious. It was said that for a body cultivator to achieve sword flight, the difficulty was much higher than for a chirofining cultivator. So even if Su Jingzhen's body cultivation reached the next level, the flesh-body spiritual embryo realm, it was still uncertain whether he could fly with a sword like a foundation establishment cultivator. Seeing the countless chirofining stage cultivators below, casting envious glances at him, Cao Qing felt extremely satisfied with his own pride. He then loudly declared, "Today marks the annual Spirit Awakening ceremony of our Huyang sect. I'm delighted to see that there are more participants this year. I hope that everyone who enters the Spirit Awakening Tower will be able to awaken their own spiritual roots." As usual during grand events, there were always some unnecessary formalities to go through. Cao Qing, that old guy, started talking about the history of Huyang sect, from its founder, Huyang Zhenren, and went on and on. After a bunch of irrelevant chatter, he finally got to the point. Today's spirit awakening ceremony is different from previous years. Recently, our Huiyang sect's Linjiang branch has produced an exceptionally talented disciple. Taking advantage of today's ceremony, all the fellow Taoists from Linjiang City are gathered here. As a witness, Huiyang sect is willing to promote him to an inner disciple first. Then, he will be in charge of hosting the spirit awakening ceremony. Oh no! When Su Jingzhen heard Cao Qing's words, his heart skipped a beat. Although Cao Qing hadn't mentioned the person's name, who didn't know that the one being promoted to an inner sect disciple was Chen Jinshi. It was just that no one had expected Huiyang sect to give him such an honor. It turned out that Chen Jinshi's promotion would take place before the spirit awakening ceremony. Previously, Su Jingzhen and the others had thought that even if Chen Jinshi were to be promoted to an inner sect disciple, it would just be a formality after the ceremony. But they never expected it to be so formal. And the most important thing was that after the promotion, Chen Jinshi would be in charge of hosting the spirit awakening ceremony. Su Jingzhen could predict with his toes that Chen Jinshi would definitely make things difficult for them during the ceremony. He, Su Jingzhen, didn't believe it. Almost everyone was looking at Chen Jinshi with either admiration or envy. Chen Jinshi, sitting in the central seat, suddenly stood up. A warm smile appeared on his face. Although Chen Jinshi's appearance wasn't as handsome as Luo Yuebai's, and was even inferior to Su Jingzhen's, he was still the center of attention. And it didn't hinder many female cultivators from gazing at him with admiration. The honor that Cao Qing and Huiyang sect's Linjiang branch were giving him was simply too great. Brother Chen is indeed that beam of light, illuminating my heart, which has been dark and quiet for a long time. My ideal partner is someone like Brother Chen, a genius who can soar to great heights. I hope that after his promotion, he can wear golden armor and ride on an auspicious cloud to marry me. Many female cultivators were already fantasizing about Chen Jinshi. Su Jingzhen and Luo Yuebai simultaneously looked at each other with disdain. Su Jingzhen smiled at Luo Yuebai and said, "Do you feel pressured, Brother Luo?" Luo Yuebai was taken aback. Su Jingzhen smiled again and said, "Didn't we all see it last night? That guy is extremely infatuated with Pavilion Master Feng. His current aura is indeed quite strong." Luo Yuebai was speechless again. After enjoying the attention of everyone in the square, Chen Jinshi walked to the center of the square, in front of Huiyang Zhenren's statue. Although he had reached the great perfection of Kai refining, he still hadn't achieved foundation establishment and couldn't fly with a sword. If he could, he would be able to show off to the extreme today. Chen Jinshi stood quietly beneath the statue of Huiyang Zhenren, with a warm smile on his lips. However, his gaze was extremely tender as he looked at Feng Qingye, who was seated in front of him. If his gaze last night was still somewhat restrained, today it was completely unrestrained, burning with passion. But he didn't say a word. On the other side, Su Jingzhen and Luo Yuebai exchanged a glance, their faces twisted in disgust. Seeing their enemy so full of vigor, everyone's heart felt a little uncomfortable. "Brother, did you see that? His gaze is completely unrestrained now," Su Jingzhen said with a smile. Add to that the halo that Huiyang sect is about to bestow upon him, which female cultivator wouldn't be infatuated. Luo Yuebai smiled wryly. No worries after all, Feng Qingye is no ordinary person. He unfolded his fan again, seemingly trying to avoid the topic. As Su Jingzhen and Luo Yuebai conversed, Cao Qing, who was flying in the sky, descended. Looking at Chen Jinshi, his expression turned serious. "Chen Jinshi," he called out loudly. "I'm here, master," Chen Jinshi replied, his smile instantly disappearing, replaced by a serious expression. Cao Qing continued, "Pay respects to the ancestors." The process of becoming an inner sect disciple was indeed quite complicated. After hearing Cao Qing's command, Chen Jinshi didn't hesitate, turning to face the statue of Huiyang Zhenren and performing 3 kneels and 9 bows. He then took out 3 long incense sticks from somewhere and respectfully inserted them into the incense burner in front of the statue. Cao Qing's expression turned serious as he looked at all the Huyang sect disciples and the other guests on the square. Today, I, on behalf of the sect master, exercise the authority to confer the title of inner sect disciple. I hereby promote out-of-sect disciple Chen Jinshi to inner sect disciple of Huyang sect. Is there anyone among the Huyang sect disciples who objects? As soon as he finished speaking, the entire audience fell silent. You've already asked Chen Jinshi to go and pay respects to the ancestors, and you're almost done with the process. Then you ask if anyone has any objections. Isn't this just a farce? After a few moments of silence, Cao Qing's lips curled up into a smile. At this time, Chen Jinshi had already finished paying respects and returned to his original position. Cao Qing directly took out a white token. Since no one has any objections, according to the rules, all out-of-sect disciples can now challenge Chen Jinshi. The winner can take his place. As soon as he finished speaking, Cao Qing and Chen Jinshi's gazes swept across all the Huyang sect disciples present. Today, most of the Huyang sect disciples were on Clear Wind Mountain, and only a few had come to this ceremony. Still, no one dared to respond. What a joke! Chen Jinshi had already reached the late stage of Kai refining when he came out of seclusion. Among the outer sect disciples, those who had reached the late stage of Kai refining were extremely rare, and who would be his opponent? Cao Qing's question was just a formality. Seeing the silence from the Huyang sect disciples, Chen Jinshi's face revealed a hint of arrogance. Since that's the case, I hereby declare that Chen Jinshi has been promoted to inner sect disciple of Huyang sect, effective immediately. Cao Qing's smile grew even more radiant. He then shifted his gaze away from the Huyang sect disciples. Today is a grand occasion for Huyang sect. If any of the guests present are willing to show off their skills, they can challenge our inner sect disciple Chen Jinshi. Cao Qing was intentionally creating an opportunity for Chen Jinshi to gain prestige. If no one dared to challenge him, his prestige would reach its peak today. Those with some real power had already gone to Clear Wind Mountain to try their luck, and the people who came to participate in the ceremony were a level below. Among his peers, who would be Chen Jinshi's opponent. Moreover, many people on the square had heard a terrifying message from Cao Qing's words. He was referring to Chen Jinshi, the inner sect disciple of Huyang sect, not Chen Jinshi, the inner sect disciple of the Huyang sect's Lingjiang branch. This seems like a small difference, but it represents the main sect of Huyang sect. Many people present had seen the promotion ceremony of Huyang sect before. However, in the past, almost every title was Huyang sect's Lingjiang branch, and Huyang sect was distinguished from it. Huyang sect's main sect inner disciple, this identity is quite terrifying. For those from other sects to challenge Chen Jinshi, losing would be a humiliation. Winning wouldn't bring any rewards, and would instead offend an inner disciple of Huyang sect's main sect. It's not worth it. After Chen Jinshi received the inner sect disciple token, his status would likely surpass Cao Qing, the vice sect master of the Lingjiang branch. I thought promoting Chen Jinshi before the ceremony would be enough to give him prestige. I didn't expect Cao Qing to have another trick up his sleeve, and I didn't expect Chen Jinshi to directly become an inner disciple of Huyang sect's main sect. It seems that the people from the main sect who came earlier highly recognize his talent. This is quite interesting. Luo Yuebai, who was standing beside Su Jingzhen, also smiled. His self-muttering revealed a lot of information to Su Jingzhen. He then smiled at Su Jingzhen. Taoist Su, are you worried? Su Jingzhen was speechless. He was a bit anxious, but also a bit helpless. After all, the upcoming ceremony required Chen Jinshi to preside over it. The higher his prestige, the greater his power would be. Su Jingzhen sighed. Worried or not, it's useless. We still need to rely on Huyang sect's spirit tower. We can only take it one step at a time. As he spoke, Su Jingzhen's face was helpless, but his heart was calm. Shuangjiang was still his ultimate trump card. If he was pushed to the limit, he wouldn't be completely helpless. He could directly ask Shuangjiang to take action and take Chen Jinshi's head off. It wasn't impossible. At most, he would just have to leave Linjiang City afterwards. When he didn't have the power, he could hide and wait. Once he gained a certain amount of power, Su Jingzhen's thoughts would also change accordingly. Moreover, even if he didn't rely on Shuangjiang's power, as long as he revealed a bit of information about his alchemy master identity, Feng Qingye would likely be willing to help. After all, Feng Qingye had already developed a sense of camaraderie with him, so in the future, when Shuangjiang left, he could still get help from Feng Qingye. It wouldn't be possible to keep his identity hidden forever. Even now, looking at Luo Yuebai, he might not be afraid of Chen Jinshi. Shuangjiang had previously told Su Jingzhen to keep a distance from Luo Yuebai and pretend to be strangers. But now, it seemed like it was no longer possible to keep a distance. So he could only follow her other suggestion and become friends. As long as Luo Yuebai was still interested in him, he wouldn't abandon him in his time of need. So overall, Su Jingzhen's confidence was sufficient. Even thinking about these relationships, he felt a hint of excitement, as if he was looking forward to Chen Jinshi's challenge. While Su Jingzhen and Luo Yuebai were chatting casually, no one in the central area dared to challenge Chen Jinshi. He was about to be promoted to an inner sect disciple of Huyang sect, without any suspense. At this moment, all the disciples of Huyang sect who were present congratulated Chen Jinshi. However, Su Jingzhen felt a piercing gaze falling on himself. He looked around and saw Chen Chong among the crowd. If you ask who is the most excited person at this time, it was not Chen Jinshi himself. It was Chen Chong. All his previous things were to make way for Chen Jinshi, and finally, he hadn't disappointed these expectations. Now that Chen Jinshi had successfully been promoted, Chen Chong wouldn't have too many worries when doing things in the future. Seeing Su Jingzhen looking over, Chen Chong's mouth curled up into a proud smile. He even involuntarily made a throat-slitting gesture towards Su Jingzhen. Although Chen Chong's usual demeanor didn't suit such frivolous actions, he couldn't conceal his excitement. Although the Chen family had lost face last night, they had already regained it today. However, the desire to kill Su Jingzhen remained unchanged. After all, one couldn't forget the shame of yesterday just because of today's glory. What had happened was already a fact and couldn't be erased. Su Jingzhen, however, only responded with a smile. There's no trouble under the heavens, only the foolish create their own troubles. After a round of congratulations, Cao Qing took the initiative to walk down from the central region. As previously mentioned, everything from now on would be handed over to Chen Jinshi. Now they were finally entering the main topic of today. Chen Jinshi's gaze swept across the faces of everyone present. When he saw Su Jingzhen in the corner, he only paused for a moment. That warm and gentle smile reappeared on his face. Today, I am grateful for the kindness of the sect's elders, allowing me to be promoted to an inner sect disciple. No need for idle chatter, I won't say much. Now, let me borrow the power of the Huyang sect's spirit tower to open the tower for all the fellow Taoists present. Everyone had thought that Chen Jinshi, who had just been promoted, would give a long and grand speech. But unexpectedly, he was so straightforward. He immediately won the praise of the crowd once again. After all, everyone's time was precious, and they didn't want to waste it. Brother Chen is indeed different. If it were those old men from Huyang sect, they would probably drone on for half a day. Brother Chen is indeed the ideal husband in my heart. Regardless of the world, admiration for the strong seems to be universal. There were many crazy fans. As soon as the words fell, Chen Jinshi directly walked towards the ancient white tower beside the statue. The white tower's gate was tightly closed, and Chen Jinshi's aura, which was full of spiritual energy, suddenly surged up. With a flick of his hand, an invisible spiritual force landed on the four corners of the white tower's gate. Everyone only heard a loud rumbling sound. The tower gate then opened wide. On the tower's body, a colorful light flashed for an instant. The entire spirit tower seemed to have been awakened by Chen Jinshi's actions. In reality, the process of opening the spirit tower wasn't too complicated, and after opening it, one only needed to let those who wanted to awaken their spiritual roots enter. Those who wanted to awaken their spiritual roots would enter one by one. The spirit stones inside would automatically detect the spiritual roots of those who entered. So as long as someone had a bit of cultivation, they could open the spirit tower and take charge of this matter. Letting Chen Jinshi do it was just to give him face. After Chen Jinshi opened the spirit tower, Chen Chong called out to the Qiuliu school children behind him. They then lined up to enter the tower. What's the saying? Those who are near the water tower get the moon first. This was it. No one dared to object to this. At this moment, the Chen family was the undisputed main character on this square. Before anyone officially entered the spirit tower, there were over a dozen late-stage cultivators standing around the tower. Although the spirit awakening ceremony didn't have any danger, caution was the norm for all cultivators. One had to be prepared for any eventuality. It's said that Chen, the friend from Qiuliu school, made a bet with Su Jingzhen from Peach Blossom Alley last night. But looking at it now, it seems like there's no need to compare. Yes, with Chen Jinshi personally hosting the spirit awakening ceremony, if one of the children from Peach Blossom Alley Enlightenment School can have a spiritual awakening, I will concede. That Su Jingzhen is really a clown. It is said that his cultivation is only at the early stage of Kai refining. It is really a compliment for such a person, who even dogs don't want to pay attention to be able to compete with Taoist Chen Jinshi. You're speaking incorrectly. Are you saying that Chen Jinshi is not even as good as a dog? Zhang. Seeing Chen Chong's actions, the crowd on the square started discussing again. Su Jingzhen felt like he was being targeted again, for no reason. What's going on? He hadn't done anything yet. Today's situation had developed to this point, and everyone knew he was an unlucky guy, so why was he still receiving so many disdainful glances? Su Jingzhen's expression remained calm and carefree, but his eyes were observing everything. Emotional connection +8. Remaining usable points 315. Su Jingzhen was stunned. He subconsciously glanced at Shuangjiang beside him, who still had a poker face. Su Jingzhen didn't expect that he could earn Shuangjiang's points without doing anything. Taoist Su is indeed very open-minded. At this time, Lu Yuebai looked around the scene and then smiled at Su Jingzhen, with a hint of teasing in his tone. Su Jingzhen knew what Lu Yuebai meant and sighed again. Let them mock me, I'll just ignore them. The sun will still shine brightly regardless of their laughter. Emotional connection +8. Remaining usable points 323. Although it wasn't the first time Su Jingzhen said this, Shuangjiang was still moved again. She felt that this phrase could be repeatedly savored. Even Lu Yuebai in front of him was stunned for a moment. His gaze towards Su Jingzhen became strange again. This phrase had shaken his heart. He, of course, knew that Su Jingzhen had said it very naturally. But it was precisely this naturalness that highlighted his extraordinariness. Lu Yuebai's curiosity about Su Jingzhen grew even more intense. However, as Lu Yuebai's perception of Su Jingzhen gradually changed, Su Jingzhen was suddenly shocked. Because, at this moment, a line of golden text appeared in front of his eyes again. Emotional connection with Lu Yuebai reached. No hostility. Reward points. Level bonus 1x. Cultivation bonus 2x. Remaining usable points 333. Su Jingzhen stood there, stunned, his gaze towards Lu Yuebai filled with strangeness and a hint of fear. Oh no, there is nothing wrong with my orientation. How did I form an emotional connection with him? Friend Su, is there something wrong with my face? What are you looking at me like that for? Lu Yuebai was still reeling from Su Jingzhen's previous words, just like Shuangjiang. But suddenly, Su Jingzhen gave him a strange look. Lu Yuebai's heart grew more suspicious. He stretched out his hand, preparing to touch Su Jingzhen. However, before his hand could make contact, Su Jingzhen suddenly retreated 2 feet back. Don't come any closer. Su Jingzhen's sudden movement startled Lu Yuebai. Even Shuangjiang and Enning Yao on the side looked puzzled. What's wrong, friend Su? What's going on? Lu Yuebai was baffled. Seeing the strange gazes from the crowd, Su Jingzhen's face turned slightly embarrassed. He knew he had overreacted. But he really couldn't accept any physical contact with Luo Yuebai at this time. In the past, when there was no emotional connection, he didn't mind casual physical contact. But this emotional connection made him feel a bit ashamed. He couldn't accept it, even if Luo Yuebai was extremely handsome. He, Su Jingzhen, had his limits. Before the emotional connection was formed, he didn't think it was a big deal to put arms around each other's shoulders. But this emotional connection really made him feel a little ashamed. Suddenly, Su Jingzhen felt that these days, Luo Yuebai's enthusiasm towards him might not be because he had discovered something, but simply because he was attracted to his handsome face and strong physique. This was terrifying to think about. "Friend Su, what's wrong with you? Why are you suddenly so afraid of me? Am I some kind of fierce beast?" As for Luo Yuebai, he was genuinely puzzled at this time. To the point where Luo Yuebai's heart was also a bit anxious. Had he discovered something that shouldn't be possible, right? No, don't mind, friend. I just suddenly feel that my current situation is a bit dangerous. You're too close to me, and Huyang sect might not spare you. Su Jingzhen's tone gradually calmed down. His excuse was quite abrupt, but it was reasonable. It could explain his previous behavior, after all. Luo Yuebai didn't raise an eyebrow, his face still filled with doubt. "Is that so? If that's the case, then you don't need to worry, friend. Let them vent their anger if they want to." As he spoke, Luo Yuebai's face was calm and carefree, with a hint of disdain. Emotional connection +2. Remaining usable points, 335. At this time, the golden words, emotional connection +2, floated in front of Su Jingzhen's eyes again. Although the points increased, the ones from Luo Yuebai made him uncomfortable. It was only now that he suddenly realized. This guy's cultivation bonus had reached 2 times. No wonder he was so fearless. He still didn't know what the 2 times cultivation bonus on the panel corresponded to in reality. Based on Zhang Ziu's inference, 2 times was at least foundation establishment, but there could be even higher possibilities. As Luo Yuebai spoke to him, Su Jingzhen had already walked to Xianxia's side. At this time, Xianxia's face also showed puzzlement and curiosity. She vaguely felt that Su Jingzhen had just lied. But she really didn't know what reason could make Su Jingzhen react so strongly. After all, no matter how strong her cultivation was, she couldn't imagine the existence of a system. However, with Xianxia's personality, she wouldn't ask questions even if she was curious. Seeing Su Jingzhen standing extremely close to Xianxia, Luo Yuebai's heart was still filled with doubt. But he didn't dwell on the matter either. Their gazes once again turned to the awakening tower in front of them. At this time, children had already entered the awakening tower. The awakening tower was undoubtedly the focus of everyone's attention. This was the fundamental purpose of gathering here. Su Jingzhen recognized the first child to enter the tower. It was none other than Lin Feng, the son of Lin Ping, whom he had killed. He had been transferred to Qiuliu Alley School by Lin Ping a long time ago, and after his father's death, he seemed to have been well taken care of by Qiuliu School. At the age of 12, he already had a bit of an extraordinary aura. This kid should be able to awaken spiritual roots. Lin Feng had studied at Peach Blossom Alley Enlightenment School, and Su Jingzhen knew a thing or two about him. This kid's innate talents were indeed exceptional. Su Jingzhen had been in this line of work for over 2.5 years, and had some experience. Children who were relatively smart in all aspects would naturally have a good result when awakening. Of course, there were exceptions, like Xianxia, who was considered the most excellent child by Yan Chixiao and his wife. They were even willing to spend a large sum of money to buy her a spiritual body, but she still couldn't awaken spiritual roots. And now she had come again. Su Jingzhen had caught a glimpse of her in the crowd. To get back on track, as Su Jingzhen was thinking to himself, he saw Lin Feng walking into the tower with an extremely tense expression. However, as time passed, the awakening tower didn't show any reaction. If someone had spiritual roots, the tower would respond with corresponding colors after detecting the spirit stones. Red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. There were only 5 colors in total. As long as any of these colors appeared, it represented the presence of spiritual roots, even if it was just ordinary. But if it was an ordinary spiritual root, with a single attribute or even dual attributes, that would be considered exceptional. In Linjiang City, it would be considered a small genius, with a chance of reaching foundation establishment in the future. If it was an ordinary spiritual root with 3 or more attributes, that would be basically useless, and it was recommended to find a Dao companion as soon as possible after adulthood. If the tower lit up with 2 colors, it would represent the appearance of mysterious spiritual roots. Mysterious spiritual roots were rare in Linjiang City. Even if it was a 5-element spiritual root, as long as one of the elements reached the mysterious level. In that case, it would be considered a template for an inner sect disciple of Huyang sect's Linjiang branch. It was said that Chen Jinshi, when he awakened, had 2 spiritual roots, with water being ordinary, but his metal spiritual root reached the mysterious level. He focused on cultivating his metal spiritual root and achieved great success by the time he was over 20 years old. So in Linjiang City, if someone could produce a mysterious spiritual root, it would be like an ancestral grave emitting blue smoke. And if the awakening tower lit up with 3 colors, it would represent the awakener having a terrifying earth spiritual root. Such a person, regardless of how many spiritual roots they had, could be called a genius. That would be a template for a saint or a holy maiden of Huyang sect's main sect. As for the awakening tower lighting up with 4 colors, heavenly spiritual roots. Forget about Huyang sect, even the entire Qingzhou region hasn't seen one in 1,000 years. So it's not worth discussing. This kid looks like he's useless. It's been so long without a reaction, he's indeed useless. It's said that friend Lin Ping died for this kid. What a pity, he has no value at all. Zhang. Looking at Lin Feng in the awakening tower, the crowd couldn't help but shake their heads. Chen Chong's face turned gloomy. He originally wanted to let Lin Feng make a good start. But it ended up like this. He was just about to scold him. At this time, the awakening tower suddenly had a faint, weak change. This is not right at all. The awakening tower is actually changing. I told you that Lin Feng looked like a clever kid, and it seems he's not one to awaken without spiritual roots. Those who had mocked him earlier were now changing their tune. Looking in the direction of the spirit awakening tower, their faces were filled with surprise and envy. After all, not every cultivator's child could awaken their spiritual roots. Even if Lin Feng had only awakened the lowest level 5-element ordinary spiritual roots, he could still cultivate. At the very least, he could continue to stay in the cultivation world. Chen Chong, who was standing near the spirit awakening tower, finally cracked a smile. As long as Lin Feng had spiritual roots, he could still be considered to have opened the door to success. Just then, a faint, weak red light appeared on the surface of the spirit awakening tower. It was indeed a single-colored ordinary spiritual root. Ordinary spiritual roots, that's not unexpected. I wonder how many elements it has. As the first person to awaken in this session, everyone was curious again. Su Jingzhen and Lu Yubai, who were standing far away, also cast curious glances. After the weak red light appeared on the spirit awakening tower, strange phenomena began to emerge in the void around the tower. In the next instant, everyone in the entire square could feel the energy surging in the void in front of the tower. A golden aura flowed, but it didn't take on a specific shape. This represented the presence of metal attributes in Lin Feng's spiritual roots. In the next instant, a vital energy emerged, but it still didn't take on a specific shape. However, a moist aura followed, and then a scorching aura. Finally, a thick, heavy aura appeared, and none of them were missing. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, all 5 elements were present. Moreover, none of them had taken on a specific shape, which meant that all 5 elements were at a very weak level. This level was only slightly stronger than pseudo-spiritual roots. Without special circumstances, it would be difficult to break through to the mid-stage of Kai refinement, regardless of which element's cultivation method was used. When the Spirit Awakening Tower returned to its calm state, Chen Jinshi, who was standing at the gate, smiled and said, "Congratulations, you've awakened your spiritual roots. Although it's not that great, it's still not bad that you've awakened. You can come out now." Chen Jinshi's face still wore a warm and gentle smile as he spoke. "Thank you, sir." Lin Feng's face was filled with excitement, and compared to his previous tension, as long as he had awakened his spiritual roots, it was already enough for him. After Lin Feng, the over 100 children from Qiulu School also entered the Spirit Awakening Tower one by one. However, most of the children who entered later did not achieve the same results as Lin Feng. About 2 hours later, all 107 children from Qiulu School had finished their spiritual awakening. Adding Lin Feng, only a total of 5 children had awakened their 5-element, ordinary spiritual roots. 14 children had only triggered a weak red light on the Spirit Awakening Tower, but without any other phenomena, indicating that their spiritual roots were pseudo-spiritual roots, just like Xianxia's. This result was somewhat disappointing and worrying for Chen Chong. He had never thought that Lin Feng, who was used as a good start, would end up with the best result in Qiulu School with his 5-element ordinary spiritual roots. Although this situation was extremely normal, considering the vast world and the large number of people, it was not uncommon for a Dao companion to have 10 or 8 children, and if each of them could awaken their spiritual roots and become cultivators, the cultivation world would be overcrowded. Chen Chong understood the logic, but he had a bet with Su Jingzhen, and the current results were not looking good. If Su Jingzhen's side had even a slightly better spiritual root, such as a 4-element ordinary spiritual root, they would lose. Moreover, Chen Chong knew that Su Jingzhen's side had Enning Yao, a clever and talented child, who was bound to awaken her spiritual roots. Through the assassination attempt last night, they no longer believed that Su Jingzhen was just a poor and struggling teacher. He had special powers, and it would be difficult to eliminate him quietly. The plan to unify the schools in Linjiang City might have to be put on hold. Chen Chong's expression suddenly became unnatural. At this time, Chen Jinshi's gaze happened to fall on him. With a warm and gentle smile on his face, he nodded slightly, as if to reassure him that everything would be all right. "Children, follow me, let's go." On the other side, Su Jingzhen took a deep breath and led Enning Yao and the other 9 children towards the Spirit Awakening Tower. No matter what difficulties Chen Jinshi might pose, they would have to face them eventually. This time, the children who were of suitable age, excluding the 107 from Qiulu School, were the 9 from Su Jingzhen's side. According to the unwritten rules, although there would be more failures in the future, those who refused to give up would still have a chance to awaken their spiritual roots. But they would have to wait in line after the suitable age children. This was basically an unspoken rule in the cultivation world. After all, these children were the fresh blood that the cultivation world needed to replenish itself. Linjiang City is just a small place, and I wanted to see the talents of these suitable age children. But the result was only a few 5-element ordinary spiritual roots, which is truly disappointing. You also know that this is just a small place, and being able to awaken 5 spiritual roots is already quite good in my opinion. After all, this time, there were only over 100 people who came to awaken their spiritual roots, and the ratio is already quite high. That's not right, aren't there still some children who haven't come yet? Maybe there are still some who can awaken their spiritual roots among them. There were many outsiders who had come to watch the commotion. These people were either those who had not yet gone to Clear Wind Mountain or those who did not have enough luck and had already come down from the mountain. When they saw Su Jingzhen leading the children over, most people's gazes were already focused on them. It seemed like Linjiang City's last hope. When Su Jingzhen and the children arrived, Chen Jinshi's smile became even more intense. Su Jingzhen knew that this guy would definitely make things difficult for him. But he still planned to take things one step at a time. If he could complete the spiritual awakening ceremony for these children smoothly, that would be the best. However, before he could say anything, Chen Jinshi's gaze suddenly shifted away from them. He didn't even glance at them. Instead, he turned to those who had failed to awaken their spiritual roots in the past, and said, "Those who failed to awaken their spiritual roots in the past, but still want to try again, please step forward. After submitting 10 low-grade spirit stones, you can try again." People like Xianxia, who had been waiting for a long time, were overjoyed and walked directly to the Spirit Awakening Tower. Chen Jinshi then turned to smile at Su Jingzhen again. "Taoist Su, the rules have changed temporarily. Perhaps you'll have to wait a little longer." Thinking of how Su Jingzhen controlled the situation at Kuliu Academy last night, Chen Jinshi was still a little unhappy. Today, within the Huyang sect, this was his domain, and the rules were set by him. He naturally wanted to take control of Su Jingzhen as he pleased. Su Jingzhen was taken aback, his eyes narrowing slightly. But the other party did not directly say that they did not want them to awaken their spirits, and if he were to force the issue, he would fall into a disadvantageous position. Although Su Jingzhen had already gained some confidence, he didn't want to act impulsively. So he simply smiled faintly and nodded at Chen Jinshi, indicating that he didn't mind. There are some people who should stay in their place, and if they try to stir up trouble to attract attention, they will only end up hurting themselves. Just then, a faint, mocking voice suddenly entered Su Jingzhen's ears. Following the sound, he saw that Xianxia had already walked up to him. However, she only mocked him once and didn't give him any further attention. The focus returned to Chen Jinshi and the spirit tower in front of them. Su Jingzhen still maintained a smile on his face, saying nothing. As for Xianxia, he didn't want to bother with her. He had already been in the cultivation world for 2.5 years, and hiding his head in the sand for a while longer wouldn't be a big deal. He was in a good mood. At this time, he didn't notice that Luo Yuebai, who was beside him, didn't make any sarcastic remarks in this situation. Luo Yuebai's gaze was fixed on the vast and endless clear wind mountain in front of them, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. Because at this moment, only Shuangjiang saw that Luo Yuebai was hiding a small, extremely fast, and extremely obscure insect in his folded fan. A subtle wave of energy flashed across it, apparently a special communication method. Shuangjiang's gaze condensed, also looking towards Clear Wind Mountain. But she only took a glance before withdrawing her gaze, still expressionless. Luo Yuebai, however, took a step forward, his expression slightly serious as he looked at Su Jingzhen. "Friend Su, we should hurry up with today's matters. Otherwise, these children may have to wait until next year to awaken their spirits. If we delay for a year after the suitable age, it will be a great loss. As long as one reaches the age, they can awaken their spiritual roots and start cultivating. Delaying for a year would indeed be a great loss." However, Su Jingzhen couldn't understand the meaning behind Luo Yuebai's words. Although they had established a connection of mutual understanding, Su Jingzhen still felt a bit uneasy. But he knew that Luo Yuebai wouldn't harm him under their current relationship. He also knew that Luo Yuebai was giving him a reminder. This guy didn't come to Huyang's sect just to watch the excitement. Su Jingzhen's eyebrows slightly furrowed, but his face still showed a puzzled expression as he asked, "Friend Luo, what do you mean?" Luo Yuebai smiled again. "It means exactly what it says, friend Su. You still have some time, but not much." His words were ambiguous, and he didn't explain further. However, Su Jingzhen subtly understood, and his gaze unconsciously shifted to Shuangjiang beside him. The latter also nodded slightly. At this time, Su Jingzhen saw that Luo Yuebai's gaze frequently shifted towards Clear Wind Mountain in front of them. His heart sank again. Could it be that something was about to happen on Clear Wind Mountain? Thinking of this, he looked towards the spirit tower in front of him again. At this time, people were already entering it one after another. However, these people were all previous failures. Although they were unwilling, they couldn't change the current situation. Most of them couldn't awaken their spiritual roots again, so their speed was quite fast. Thinking about this, Su Jingzhen didn't take any rash actions. After all, Luo Yuebai said he still had some time, and he believed that Luo Yuebai wouldn't shoot blindly. As he thought this, the spirit tower had already reached Yanxia's turn. She first sincerely handed over 10 low-grade spirit stones, to a Luoyang sect disciple beside her. Then she walked up to Chen Jinshi and respectfully bowed to him. Today she was still dressed up, and as she bowed, she showcased her many charms to Chen Jinshi. What did this represent? Everyone understood without needing to be told. Chen Jinshi smiled and nodded at her. Miss Yan, please, if you can successfully awaken your spiritual roots, then there might be some opportunities. Chen Jinshi smiled and said to Xianxia, his words filled with hidden implications. Although he was passionate about Feng Qingya and admired her greatly, even considering her as his own. But in the cultivation world, a strong cultivator with multiple concubines was not uncommon. Xianxia was beautiful and had a submissive personality, so even if he took her in without marrying her, no one could say anything. Hearing Chen Jinshi's words, Xianxia's face lit up, and she walked into the spirit tower. Very quickly, a faint red light appeared on the tower. As a pseudo-spiritual roots holder, this was a normal phenomenon. However, she stood inside for a long time, allowing the energy of the spirit stones to examine her body. But the tower didn't change at all, and she was still just a pseudo-spiritual roots holder, with no miracle occurring. Xianxia's face was extremely disappointed, and she had already tried many times. The cost had been considerable, and this time it still didn't work out. Perhaps it was just her fate. Walking out of the spirit tower, Xianxia still smiled sweetly at Chen Jinshi and returned to Yan Qixiao's side. Su Jingzhen looked at her, feeling that something was off about this woman. If she was just a pseudo-spiritual roots holder, Yan Qixiao, a mid-stage Kai refining cultivator, wouldn't waste so many resources on her. It would be better to cultivate a group of excellent disciples instead of wasting resources on her. However, he only thought about this and didn't dwell on it further. In just half an hour, the previous failures had all finished their attempts. As expected, none of them had awakened their spiritual roots. After all, this was something innate, and no matter how many times they tried, it wouldn't change. Chen Jinshi comforted Xianxia and the others, then bowed to the guests again. Thank you all for watching, and this spirit awakening ceremony might be ending here. He didn't even mention the 5 ordinary spiritual roots holders, which was quite embarrassing. For those who came to watch the excitement, it was a disappointing show. However, Chen Jinshi's direct announcement of the ceremony's end still left Su Jingzhen stunned. He didn't care about much and directly walked up to Chen Jinshi. What's going on, Taoist Chen? Are you not going to let them participate just because you're afraid of losing? Seeing that Su Jingzhen finally stood up, the warm smile on Chen Jinshi's face gradually turned into a teasing one. Look at my memory, how could I have forgotten about you, Taoist Su? After a playful smile, Chen Jinshi slapped his forehead in annoyance. He looked as if he had really made a big mistake. But it was only for a moment, and he spread his hands helplessly to Su Jingzhen. I'm really sorry, Taoist Su. I'm afraid it's not possible to awaken the spirit for these children in Peach Blossom Alley. His words caused an uproar among the people present. I'm saying that there are indeed some talented individuals among these children, but why haven't they been able to awaken their spirits? It seems there's some kind of grudge involved. But what kind of grudge could make a newly promoted, inner sect disciple of Luoyang sect target them like this? This is really intriguing. I observed the aura of that person, and it's only at the 2nd level of Kai refinement. Their identities are completely mismatched, which makes this situation quite interesting. Most of the people present were outsiders and didn't attend the Kuliu school banquet, so they didn't know the inside story. This guy is really seeking death. Su Jingzhen felt a mix of emotions in his heart. He had known from the start that this awakening wouldn't go smoothly. But he didn't expect Chen Jinshi to not even give them a chance to try. He narrowed his eyes, quietly watching Chen Jinshi. He wanted to see what kind of excuse Chen Jinshi would come up with. Chen Jinshi apologized again. The Spirit Awakening Tower of Luoyang sect has been standing here for many years, and the energy of the spirit stones inside is almost depleted. Although it's not a problem for the awakening process, after so many attempts, the energy of the spirit stones is probably exhausted. We need to give it time to recover slowly. As Chen Jinqi spoke, his face was filled with helplessness, as if he was truly helpless. Everyone present was stunned upon hearing his words. What nonsense is this? Even the worst spirit stones wouldn't be depleted by over 100 people. But this was their thing, and they had the right to explain. Chen Jinqi had the right to say whatever he wanted. Su Jingzhen let out a sigh, and his gaze gradually turned cold. Are you sure you want to give me this reason, Taoist Chen? At this time, everyone sensed a strong tone in Su Jingzhen's words. They couldn't help but show interest again. Chen Jinqi raised an eyebrow. I've already made it very clear, did you hear me, Taoist Su? I don't mind explaining it again. The Spirit Awakening Tower is unusable today, so you can just leave. As he spoke, the corners of his mouth curled up again, revealing a mocking smile. This was his territory, and he was in charge. What could anyone do about it? Although Su Jingzhen's identity might not be as simple as it seemed from yesterday's situation, what did that matter? Could Su Jingzhen really dare to challenge him here? If so, with Su Jingzhen's second-level Kai refinement, Chen Jinqi could accidentally kill him, and no one could say anything about it. So Chen Jinqi was looking forward to Su Jingzhen coming to fight him in a fit of rage. Su Jingzhen ignored Chen Jinqi's mocking smile. He looked at Xianxia, who still had a calm and expressionless face. Stable. Xianxia didn't show any reaction, but it was a sign of support for him. With a strong backing, Su Jingzhen felt fearless. He took another step forward. What if I insist on using this Spirit Awakening Tower today? Chen Jinqi's smile deepened. If you insist on using it, then you'll be destroying the foundation of Huiyang sect. As an inner sect disciple of Huiyang sect, Chen Jinqi had a duty to stop him. Are you trying to exchange blows with me, Taoist Su? At this time, Chen Jinqi was surprised to discover that Su Jingzhen seemed to have a tendency to fight. This was great. Chen Jinqi's words were laced with a provocative tone, trying to instigate a fight. You don't have much time left, Taoist Su. Just then, Lu Yuebai's voice suddenly echoed in Su Jingzhen's ear. It was a subtle, almost imperceptible transmission, and Su Jingzhen instinctively turned to look at Lu Yuebai, whose expression was slightly more serious. Su Jingzhen let out another sigh. He knew that Chen Jinqi's target was him, and no one could take his place. Today, he couldn't avoid doing something, and he couldn't avoid exposing some things. These children were his responsibility, and Chen Jinqi's obstruction was because of him. He wouldn't let the children miss this opportunity to awaken their spirits. Fortunately, he was prepared for the consequences of exposure. Su Jingzhen no longer hesitated and activated his body cultivation technique. Body cultivation technique, open secret chamber. Flesh body level, mysterious embryo, 5th layer. Next secret chamber to unlock, surging spring 0/200. Remaining points, 335. He didn't hesitate, spending 200 points to unlock the surging spring secret chamber. In an instant, the information on the technique's interface changed. Body cultivation technique, open second secret chamber. Flesh body level, mysterious embryo, 8th layer. Next secret chamber to unlock, surging spring right, 0/200. Remaining points, 135. At the same time, Su Jingzhen felt a sudden surge of heat in the soles of his left foot. It was as if the blood and Kai in his body were gathering towards his left foot. Just like when he opened the Labor Palace acupoint on his right hand, in an instant, the surging spring acupoint on his left foot erupted with an overwhelming power. The power surged through Su Jingzhen's entire body. To outsiders, he didn't seem to have changed at all. Only he knew the tremendous power coursing through his body. This was the advantage of a true body cultivation practitioner, hiding one's strength. Even with Xianxia's abilities, she wouldn't be able to detect the changes in Su Jingzhen's body without directly sensing his energy. This effect is even better than I imagined. It directly raised my flesh body level to the 8th layer of flesh body mysterious embryo. Su Jingzhen swallowed hard, his heart racing with excitement. His body cultivation technique was truly exceptional, not inferior to that of a chirofining practitioner. In fact, it was even stronger. This meant that his physical strength could now reach the level of an 8th-layer chirofining practitioner. All his hard work over the years had paid off, and the 200 points he spent were well worth it. Another exciting point was that the surging spring acupoints on his left and right feet were the same, so the points required to unlock them didn't double as usual. He still had 135 points left, and it wouldn't take long to unlock the remaining acupoints. If he could unlock all the surging spring acupoints on his left and right feet, he estimated that he could directly break through to the flesh-body spiritual embryo level. That would be comparable to the foundation establishment stage. Calm down, take it slow, take it slow. Su Jingzhen muttered to himself, trying to suppress his excitement. He looked at Chen Jinshi again. Although Chen Jinshi was a great chirofining practitioner, he was still only at the chirofining stage. If I can catch him off guard, pretend to be weak, and then launch a surprise attack with my hidden strength, I might just have a chance. In fact, the opportunity is huge. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story.